to call the regular City Commission meeting of Tuesday, June 7th, 2022 to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem.
Present.
Commissioner Rozelle.
Present.
Commissioner Olsman.
Present.
Commissioner Jenks should be joining us shortly. Mayor Paul, present. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications, we have 4 communications. I think anything requires a comment. Am I correct, Chris?
I believe that's correct, yes, sir.
Seeing any elected officials in the room.
Mayor Paul.
It's more of an introduction than I am Senator Marshall Bullock. I'm currently the Senate District 4, but due to our independent redistricting committee, my district where I live is now thrust from Detroit to Birmingham, so that would include our great city of Huntington Woods. I'm no stranger to Oakland County or anything. I actually worked in Rackham and the zoo and roamed the areas quite as much. I have a background in municipal government. I come out of Mayor Duggan's administration for several years before I ran for office and leaped right into the Senate. I'm the Vice President Pro Tem of the Senate for the Minority Party. I sit on 4 committees. I sit on insurance and banking, so I hope everybody got their $400. I sit on transportation and infrastructure, so we are fixing the roads. Energy and technology, I'm the Vice Chair. Family, Seniors, and Veterans, I'm the Chairman of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. I was appointed to 3 task forces, the Coronavirus for Racial Disparities Task Force, Child Welfare Improvement Task Force, Marijuana Regulatory Agency for Social Justice Task Force, and many other things like that. But I wanted to make sure I came and introduced myself as it is my desire to continue to serve the great folks of Michigan and this great district. So I wanted you to meet me and meet the folks of Huntington Woods in a formal capacity.
Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, moving on, we have a proclamation of the City of Huntington Woods recognizing June of 2022 as LGBTQIA Pride Month. Whereas the City of Huntington Woods cherishes the value and dignity of each person and appreciates the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas all are welcome in the City of Huntington Woods to live, work, play, and every family in any shape deserves a place to call home where they are safe, happy, and supported by friends and neighbors. And whereas the city denounces prejudice and unfair discrimination based on age, gender identity, gender expression, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical attributes as an affront to our fundamental principles. And whereas Pride Month began in June of 1969 on the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City, after LGBTQIA and allied friends rose up and fought against the constant police harassment and discriminatory laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. And whereas the city appreciates the cultural, civic, and economic contribution of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual community, which strengthen our social welfare. And whereas it is imperative that young people in our community, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers and community leaders. whereas despite being marginalized, LGBTQIA people continue to celebrate authenticity, acceptance, and love. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the City Commission declare the month of June 2022 as LGBTQIA month in the City of Huntington Woods, and urge residents to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQIA community and to actively promote the principles of equality, liberty, and justice, proclaimed at the regular City Commission meeting on June 7th, 2022. That's what I was going to ask Carol before the meeting. Does a proclamation need a vote? Okay, public participation. Now is an opportunity for the public to make a comment on an item that is not on the agenda. If you have a comment to make, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, public participation is closed. And we're going to start with a public hearing. Chris, are you going to introduce?
Sure. Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a public hearing for a revision of the City of Huntington Woods Ordinance, Chapter 40, the zoning ordinance, Article 9, Sustainable Design and Environmental Standards, to replace Section 9.03 regarding solar structures and easements. The purpose of this was to try and make an attempt to streamline some of the processes by which residents would be allowed to place solar instruments or devices on their homes. I know this had been the subject of, I think, many months of discussion, even prior to my beginning employment with the city. I took this back for some discussion at a couple of meetings with the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee. Came up with a little bit of compromise with what had appeared before the commission last year. The revision that you have before you would allow by right solar installations on the side and rear yard of homes for solar power of homes. If they wanted such a device to be installed in the front yard, that would require an application to be made to the ZBA, where they can state their case for practical difficulty to the ZBA as to why the side or rear yard wouldn't work. But it does eliminate site plan review process and would treat a solar device much like any other building installation in the community, subject to the setback regulations, but otherwise, if you met those, you could apply for a permit and install those on your house. So I think it's a big change for these particular items, streamlines that process, and hopefully encourages people to pursue those on their homes, which is the ultimate goal, is to have more of these devices installed throughout the city. So I think it answers some of the questions that commission that I had read through the minutes had about this last year, and I think we addressed those and came to a compromise, and I hope you find this worthy of inclusion in the city code. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and we'll move on to the regular items of business. Start with the first item, which is approval of the City of Huntington Woods Park Usage Rules and Regulations. We have a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Is there any public comment?
My name is Jessica Steinhardt, and I live at 13333 Winchester. I've been a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for more than 3 years, and I'm currently the vice chair. I would like to thank the mayor and the city commission for addressing the parks use policy this evening. Since COVID, we've seen a significant increase in organizations interested in using our parks as a gathering place for their members or as a free location for people to run their businesses. As a Parks and Rec Board member, I've given a lot of thought over the last few years as to how these publicly funded amenities are being used and the impact on our community. 2 years in a row, I've seen City Hall prioritize an organization's park reservation request for Burton Field during school dismissal time. Last year, this organization's bonfire event disrupted school dismissal, and I shared my opinion about this with City Hall. This year, I was surprised to find out that the same organization was being allowed to set up their same event at dismissal time to, again, entice the children being let out of school. In addition to this disruption at dismissal time, my son's previously scheduled soccer practice, along with 5 other soccer practices, had to be rescheduled by Parks and Rec staff so that this event could take place. This event, which was allowed to go around the standard Parks and Rec reservation process. After speaking with Parks and Rec staff, I learned that the children of our community who are cared for through our latchkey program were crying that afternoon because they could not go to an event with a bounce house and delicious treats that was being held adjacent to the playground that they use every single school day. The young staff who work at our latchkey program were left to calm and comfort the children and, appropriately, keep them away from a public event that they did not have parental permission to attend. The city has nearly a dozen other parks that could have been reserved, nearly a dozen other parks that could have been used without disrupting school dismissal, without taking away soccer practice, and without making kids cry. As you look to finalize and support the Parks Use and Reservation policy, I hope that you will endorse a policy that respects the expertise of the Parks and Rec staff and supports transparency in this process by ensuring that all reservations go through the Parks and Rec application process. I hope that you will endorse a policy that supports the well-being of our children by significantly limiting the times that Burton property can be reserved by non-city and non-school groups for such large-scale events on school days. I hope that you will endorse a policy that gives priority to our own Parks and Rec programming.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Bring on any comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I did hear from several residents expressing the same concern as Steinhardt, and so I am pleased to see that we've updated the hours of operation in regards to reservations for Burton Field, that will no longer take place prior to 6 p.m. on school days. I think it was previously set at 4 p.m. So hopefully that addresses the transition from school getting out and kids leaving the building, seeing this event, et cetera. School should be dismissed and out well in advance of 6 p.m. So hopefully that avoids that conflict. I see that we've also cleaned up some other items in here that didn't seem to make much sense to me. So about homeowners insurance requirements and various things that I'm not sure how applicable they were. So I'm a lot more comfortable with this version of the policy than the previous version. So thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I did also hear from several parents on both occasions that Ms. Steinhardt referenced. And I was very pleased to see this amended version of the proposed parks permit policy. I think it is transparent, it's consistent, and all we're asking for is clear, consistent rules and guidelines so it's applied fairly for the applicants that want to use our public parks. And I do also want to acknowledge Commissioner Olsman for his work on this document as well. He was a real leader on this. So thank you, and thank you to Ms. Steinhardt for coming to express your opinions with us tonight.
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead.
Well, I'm also pleased that with the 6 p.m. Reservation after, there is a sharing so that the kids can play soccer and have a couple of hours after school, and nobody can complain that we don't make the city available to everyone, and yet we focus on kids during the normal kids' hour.
Mr. Mayor, I also think it's that the policy now reflects a more clear and consistent policy with regard to park, especially with respect to the reservation or the permits for a park. The rest of the things in here, there's a lot of things in here like not defacing public property. Those are already frankly covered by other ordinances, but I think it's good to have everything contained in here. And as my colleague Michelle Elder just indicated, she's been very involved in this process of trying to revise this policy, and I've spent a great deal of time on it with the city manager, who's been very patient. And you know, we really tried hard to come up with sensible, you know, you don't want to over-regulate, you don't want to over-legislate, but you want to have sensible ordinance and uniform, clear ordinances in place. I do want to address Ms. Steinhardt on one point with respect to the use of the park by Kabod a few weeks ago for a celebration at Burton Field. They did pull a permit. They did in fact have a permit for it. Also, Rabbi Mann did go and meet with the principal of Burton School ahead of time and talk to her and try to delineate exactly what he could and couldn't do. There was an effort made not to allow any setting up of anything on that property prior to the 3:30 time of dismissal, and our city manager was there personally to oversee the event when, at least at the beginning. I did go by later in the afternoon, and I would say that if there were 20 people there, it'd be a lot. But just in fairness, when something affects the school, the first thing the city tells that person is you gotta talk to the principal of Burton School and make sure it's okay. And I know that last year that there was some concern about, there was a bonfire and things like that, and I know there was some concern if my kids were little, I'd be concerned about that too, I don't disagree. So I think by limiting that field start time, excuse me, for a permit to 6 o'clock, we've eliminated that. But just in fairness, the group did have a permit. They did talk to the principal of Burton, and it just didn't go on unimpeded or unsupervised. So in fairness, that did take place. And most importantly, as I said, our city manager was there to make sure that everything went right. So, and apparently it did. I didn't hear any complaints after the fact. And so anyway, but overall, I think the policy that we have now is good and addresses the concerns of the Parks and Rec Department, also that the policy be consistent and uniform. And that's what we have here now, and up to date, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. All those, Carol, do you
I
have?
just want to add one thing. I realized at the last minute that we'd missed a park. So in the first sentence, the numbers should change when we print it for final.
When we added Scotia Park, we didn't change the number of
Yeah,
parks?
yeah,
Okay.
so we just want to so it should be 13 as well, yeah.
Thank you.
Let me ask a question. We list 14 here.
Yeah, but read the first sentence. It includes the other, which is Burton
Okay,
Field.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Jenks, you made the motion. Do you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elder?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item of business is approval of the fourth quarter 2021-22 budget amendments. Ethan, you get to take us through this.
So, looking at this, a lot of this stuff is pretty routine. You know, we've heard a lot in the news about, you know, increased pricing for everything. So, these are, that's reflected here. And, so there's just a couple minor adjustments. You see the 11-mile road debt, minor adjustment of $1,500 is needed to cover an additional invoice. An additional retirement costs for of $2,830 for the sanitation fund. And then I'm moving up to the general fund. You know, this is just seeing reductions in revenue, minor adjustments for health insurance and increased fuel costs, and then increased tree trimming costs for the road, and expenditure adjustments for increased retirement benefit costs in the rec department as well. So you can see in the spreadsheets, there's minor amendments to close out the fiscal year.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Is there any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of entering into a contract agreement with Manor Costoration, a CPA firm that has done our audit in the past, to extend the contract with them for fiscal years ending 6/30/2022 through 6/30/2024 in the amount of $83,400. We have a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Any public comment? Any comments or questions from the commission?
So this will bring the, Mr. Mayor, this will bring the total engagement with this firm to 5 years, 2019 through 2024, and then we'll rebid it after 5 years.
Yeah, so typically it's best to have auditors not for a long time. You know, you have a new set of eyes looking at the books, so there's less instances of fraud or corruption.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is a matter of considering approval of the Oakland County renewal for a contract for assessing services with the city of Huntington Woods. We have a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Any public comment? Any comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is a consideration of the approval of the Comcast Uniform Video Service Local Franchise Agreement renewal. Assuming that our city attorney has looked over this and
Yes.
is okay with everything.
Yes, Joel.
Not that we have
shortly in
much
my
choice.
office went through this, yep, yeah.
Doesn't look like we have any choice,
No.
does it?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
So if you want to be popular, tell people we got rid of Comcast. You have to bar the doors of City Hall.
Some might celebrate.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll just, continue to rail on how the big lobby interests certainly out-lobbied the cities as AT&T and Comcast shoved their way through the state legislature and took us really out of the negotiating business for franchise agreements where we were in a much better position to negotiate locally for these things. They just took us out of the picture, and we get jammed up with a franchise agreement that's frankly a boilerplate that everyone's stuck with and not really in our best interest, but we have no choice. So I'll be voting for it, but continue to go on record saying this was a bad deal when the legislature passed it. Thank you.
Well, and there was negotiation during the time of passage, and there seemed to be one agreement, and that agreement got flipped by the broadcasters. The obscenity is the way they treat the environment, the way they hang things, everything, and the way they treat trimming of trees and use of our property.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is the first reading of the ordinance city manager discussed earlier during our public hearing on solar panels. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any public comment at this time? Any comments from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this ordinance has been under consideration by us for a long time, and I was the designated representative to the liaison, if you will, to the Planning Commission when there was extensive conversation and discussion about this. And, at the end of the day, the Sustainability Committee was supportive of it. And the question is, how many people are gonna want solar panels on the front of their houses, but as our city attorney pointed out, you can't allow it on one and not allow it on the other. So, any questions about the aesthetic aspect of this, has to be balanced by ultimate fairness to residents. It's not somebody's fault that they live on the side of the street that doesn't have as much sun on the back of the house as it does the front. Having said that, and having listened to umpteen presentations about solar panels, I think within a few years what we're going to be seeing is technology whereby the shingles themselves are going to be the solar panels and probably eliminate some of these things, which frankly, aesthetically, some of them just are not really too terrific that you'd want them on the front. But I just want the residents to know that this went through agonizing conversations for hours with the planning commission, and the planning commission really vetted the issue. And like I said, at the end of the day, as our city attorney points out, you're gonna allow it on some, you have to allow it for anyone that wants it. Having said that, we haven't been inundated with requests for permits, and but it was a change that needed to be made. So I fully support it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank the city manager for turning this around and also simplifying it for city residents. So in the areas where we've had continual agreement, it becomes almost an automatic process. And in the area where there is this aesthetic sphere, it goes to, there is an appeal process. The solar panels today are very, very different than what they were 5 and 10 years ago. And very frequently, you don't recognize them. And our community is more environmentally concerned, and so there may be a much greater interest in shifting as much as they can off the grid to using solar panels. So I appreciate and urge you to vote positively for this.
Mr. Mayor, I think when we tabled this from a prior meeting, there was some concerns from residents that maybe there was not an interest at the commission level in the ordinance, but I don't think that was the case. I think that the case was the prior ordinance needed a lot of work, and I think it's come a long way to what we see here. It's a much more simplified version. These sort of arbitrary reviews that were going to take place that I had a lot of concerns with are now gone. So I think the ordinance today is a lot more resident-friendly, a lot more workable. And so for all of those reasons, I think that it's the right thing to do, and certainly I support it. So thank you.
Okay. I'd also like to thank our city manager for taking the leadership role on this and working with the parties that were interested to kind of bring together a document that works for everyone. So thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I'll try to be brief. Thanks to the commission for their consideration tonight and all the work over the last couple of weeks, especially Mayor Pro Tem Elder, Commissioner Holzman on the Parks Ordinance. I went through a lot of revisions. I had to give you a clean draft tonight because the marked up version is just about unreadable at this point. Thanks to Carol and her staff for the work on that. Hopefully, I think we've got a document that is usable by park staff at this point, and I'd appreciate feedback from Tracy and her staff and from the Parks and Rec Board on any issues we have, so we can let this be a living document and let it serve their staff and our community members well. So thanks to everybody for their work on that. I was called on the record tonight patient, so I want a copy of that to take home to show to my wife and kids.
I said patient with me. Let's not get carried away.
I'm cutting
Well, you should
it
get an
off right
award
there.
for that one.
Yeah, that's no small, yeah.
That's a special
Acknowledging it.
skill.
So thank you to everybody for their work on that. Saturday, June the 18th, we're working toward our Huntington Woods first annual Juneteenth event. There's been a tremendous amount of work, and a lot of thank yous are due to the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. The amount of effort they put into that as a voluntary, committee to this community is almost heroic. They have really gone above and beyond. And we've created this thing from whole cloth, without a really good idea of how to do that. So we're very, I think, happy with the event that we have scheduled. It's going to be from 2 to 5 in the parking lot there in front of the Recreation Center. We're going to have a proclamation that'll be read, very eloquently, I'm sure, by people in this room this evening. We're also going to make a formal presentation at that point of the historical monument for Rackham Golf Course honoring Elron Ben Davis. We're trying to get Karen Peak from Current Golf Pro at Rackham to join us there for that event as well. Councilman Sean Whitehead from City of Oak Park will be a guest speaker there and give us a presentation on the history of Juneteenth to the community. Librarian Deb Hemme has really stepped up and done a great job. We're having a selection of books that we're going to be passing out to kids. A wide variety. They're going to be free, but they'll be, for all the way from toddlers all the way to young adults. So she's compiled that reading list, and we're compiling the books. We'll have arts and crafts that are going to be generated by the Burton. Tell me the group again, Michelle.
Berkeley?
The parents group.
The Berkeley African American Parents Network?
Yes. And Mrs. Keller from Burton School who are putting that together. So really looking forward to a great event. There's going to be food, of course, because I demanded that. So we're having a great food lineup, and there'll be a DJ for about an hour and a half to 2 hours in the event too. So we're doing a lot there in 3 hours. We're really looking forward to it. We've seen the signs up around town, I hope. We're trying to get the word out on social media. BPS has also helped us out with trying to get the word out as well. So Saturday, June the 18th, 2 to 5. Look forward to seeing everybody there. 10, 12 days later, on Friday, July the 1st, we're going to have fireworks again. So we're looking forward to that event returning to the community for the first time in a couple of years. So thanks to the staff at Rackham, again, Karen Peak and her staff, Adam for working with us. We did have the firm on site a couple of weeks ago to go over the location. We had a location from 2018, 2019. We modified that location a little bit, I think, to a site on the course that had been used in previous years, and it was good to have Karen and her history there. So we've got a location that allows us, I know, to do this safely. I think we've been able to take some of the zoo's comments and concerns into consideration. And Pyrotechnico has really worked to modify this display from their standard display to try to accommodate the zoo's concerns there. So hopefully this will be a good show, and it'll hopefully will go off well. We're looking forward to that as well. Just a couple of one other note. I got a call from Hank today. He was on vacation, but he gave a presentation to the state organization today on their master plan. Got state approval for that, so that should be coming to you maybe as early as the July meeting for your review and formal approval. So that's gone really well. Did get notice from Carol's office that something that started long before I got here, but the city's logo was going through the patent and trademark application process, which is the most riveting aspect of federal law I think you could ever imagine. But we succeeded, so the logo has now been trademarked. So thanks to whoever in your firm wants to do that. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did get that. We're working with Jane Dixon to revise the logo to put the little R at the top of it. So it is now trademarked, and we will incorporate that into all our documents going forward. Lastly, I did just get the MMRMA renewal notice for our liability insurance for next year. So that riveting document that's always on the agenda every year will probably be at the next meeting. Looking forward, things look relatively good. So look forward to going over our liability insurance renewal with you at the next meeting. So other than that, that was all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission?
I do have
City
a
manager.
question. So as I understand, the master plan approval is a critical part of the redevelopment ready community certification. Maybe in the future, or if Hank could provide an update to the commission on where the overall process is, what happens after that? I think there's an economic development plan that has to get fleshed out, and
Yes.
yeah, that would be really helpful, just so we can gauge where we are in the
I'll ask
process.
him to write. He and I have had a couple of meetings about this. I've gone through, there's a formal checklist that we're working through. I'll ask him to update that. I think we're moving pretty close to having that done this summer, but I'll ask him maybe just give a written memo to council to give an update for that, so. But yeah, getting this through the process was part of that step as well. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there any possibility of recording the Juneteenth event, both broadcasting it and recording it so that other people can look at it later on? There's a lot of significance and uniqueness that's going to be in that, especially with the plaque and some of the other, and the history.
I don't know, but I will ask. I haven't thought about having somebody there to record the events for that day, so I don't know what our capabilities are with our cable provider for doing those events. I immediately thought I was gonna I'll call BCTV, but I don't work there anymore, so. I'll have to think about who does that for us, and I'll see, Commissioner Jinks, I'll see if we can get somebody there to, maybe not the full 3 hours, but maybe to get the speeches and some of the
Especially the speeches, you don't have to do the games, but we're trying to say that we're involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It would be nice if this was a file that people could continue to look at from our website.
Okay, I'll see what we can do for getting some kind of recording of that.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Are we to
Thank you,
proceed
everyone.
by standing up?